But he really liked it. And
Playing all songs shuffled.
sorry about that. Oh. That's mine.
Is Iron Maiden going to come on? You're going to keep that for the B-roll. What's going on, guys? Wei from Revolution here. Here with an amazing guy, a special guest who will remain, I guess, partially anonymous. The guys in the watch community will already know who he is. But he's going to go today by his Instagram handle, which is Greg Watchman, correct?
Yes, sir.
And Greg Watchman is, we want to keep a certain level of anonymity because he is an agent in the DEA.
That's correct.
No. And before we get into watches, I guess one of the first questions I'd like to ask you, if you don't mind, is like, what inspired you to want to be a DEA agent?
Well, actually, part of my history growing up, I always was interested in doing either law enforcement or the military, kind of being a warrior, if you will. And I was just really inspired by wanting to do something bigger than myself. And I got into martial arts and met a martial arts instructor who really inspired me to live a so-called warrior path and stay clean body, clean spirit, clean mind. So I just decided not to get involved in drinking, not to get involved in drugs. I just thought that wasn't really a good path to go if I wanted to be this so-called warrior, if you will. So that's kind of what inspired me.
And when did you actually start to sort of work with the DEA? And if you don't mind us asking, what were some of the things that you were under your purview?
Well, what I was doing is when I went to college, I got an associate's degree in administration of justice. I found out about the federal agencies, and that's when I learned more about, drug enforcement, the ATF, the FBI, more things like that. And there was just something calling me with DEA. So I decided to pursue that, but I had gone through hiring processes of multiple federal agencies. And while I was waiting for these different agencies, one agency's like, oh, we're going to hire you in a few months, and it took too long, or you're waiting here, waiting there, and it finally happened. So, but it was a 5-year hiring process.
Incredible. And Greg, you were mentioning to me that growing out in the suburbs of Chicago, you saw your generation being sort of influenced by the drug problem that was prevalent around then. And you would see sort of these random acts of violence that would happen, and it would, when people were on substances like ketamine, they would do things that would radically change the pathways of their lives or pretty much condemn them forever.
Yeah, and I had seen that happen firsthand by people I knew. I've seen people struggled with addiction. I've known people who've overdosed and died. I've known people that have gone to prison for murder, because they made bad decisions. So I was just really inspired to try to stay away from things like that and want to do something more positive and make a difference in the world. What I'm doing now is I'm talking to young people and trying to help inspire them and let them know that there are other avenues. You don't need to go down that path. And if you do, you can get help. And you need to reach out to one another and help each other and care for each other. That's the way you're going to get through problems.
Amazing. Well, you're here in a capacity as a watch collector.
Yes,
so
I am.
How'd you get into watches?
We had an uncle, my dad's brother, who came from Poland to visit for a while and work. And he had this, I believe it was a Seiko, and it was one of the ones that you'd push the button and it would light up red.
Sure.
And I remember as a child, and I'd snuggle up to him or whatever, and he'd click on the watch. I was like, wow, that is really cool. And that's the first time I really remember seeing anything about a watch. Then the first watch that I remember that was given to me, my mom and dad got me a G-Shock. And I loved that thing. I mean, I still wish I had the darn thing, but I don't, unfortunately. But it was a great watch, and I wore it all the time. And there was just something about always wearing a timepiece. And then later on, it moved into Citizen and kind of flourished from there.
What I love about your G-Shock story, you were telling me earlier also, is you may not realize it looking at Greg, but he's a huge hardcore metal and punk rock fan as well.
Yes.
And you were actually in a band as well.
Yes, I was. I was in a band for about 6 years. I was in a local music scene. I had a blast. A lot of my friends had gotten record deals and tours and all kinds of stuff. We didn't get that far, unfortunately. We did a CD and then we broke up right after we got done recording. But Yeah, so I mean, I was at shows all the time.
And you were in the pit, right?
I was always in the pit. I still will go to a show and get in a pit.
And you had your G-Shock on.
I had my G-Shock on.
And did it weather all of the sort of...
It weathered all the storms.
Amazing. Amazing. Well, you know, I guess that's one of the things that we find always very appealing about the mythology of watches. I think it's about a watch that can weather storms.
Absolutely.
And from guys that were in the military or in law enforcement, would you say that the watch that they wear is a very instrumental part of their equipment, or they develop a real personal relationship with it?
I believe so. I mean, there are some people that, aren't that interested in it, but for those that do wear it, I mean, when you're out on surveillance or doing operations and things like that, you need to time things. And, yes, we have our phones, but it's just so much easier to just check your wrist. It just seems to me more feasible and easy to do that. And there's just something about having a watch on my wrist.
Amazing. And I guess the watch that we associate the most with the military is a watch called Panerai.
Yes.
Panerai is I'm sure you guys all know this, but it's the watch of the Italian Naval Commandos, right? And when I first started getting into watches, it was the watch I wanted to have. And I remember my first proper kind of luxury watch was a PAM 61,
nice.
manual wind, titanium tobacco dial,
Wow.
Panerai,
Yeah.
because I wanted that Commandos watch
Yes,
as well. Tell me a little
absolutely.
bit about because you've got a very interesting history with Panerai. Tell me a little bit about when you started getting interested in Panerai.
Well, I learned about Panerai when I started really getting into watches. And Phil, one of my dear friends who helped run Cellini Jewelers, he was the manager there for many years, had introduced me to Panerai and had told me stories about the Paneristis, this like watch club, if you will, this group of individuals. And I had been fascinated by it because, like you said, it's a military type watch. So no, I had learned about Panerai through going there and then talking to other people and finding other collectors that had Panerais. So I learned about it, but I had never owned one, not yet. And I always wanted one. I just wasn't sure which one I would get first.
Definitely. And I have a really good friend who's a big part of the Paneristi community. His name is Hammer.
Yes, I'm familiar with Hammer.
And he's a bit of a legend, I guess.
Yes,
or
he
he's
is.
probably the most legendary kind of Panerai collector out there. And Hammer has had some injuries.
Yes.
And as a result, he's had some paralysis, but also quite a few ongoing medical issues.
Yeah.
And he's always credited the community of watch lovers, in particular his Panerai Brotherhood, to help support him through this sort of difficult moments. And it's something I've always found really admirable, not just based on his courage, but on the sort of the wonderful dimension of that community as well.
Absolutely.
You've got kind of a personal story a little bit related to that. Do you mind if I ask you about that?
No, not at all. Not at all. 3 years ago, I had become friends with a person by the name of Steven who had a Fortis Facebook page, Fortis Watches. And I have a Fortis, love it. I've had it for several years, and I've worn it on all kinds of tactical training, winter backpacking, ice climbing, mountaineering. It's been like my military type watch in a little bit better price point for me at the time than the Panerai. So I became friends with him, and he had invited me to come to a Panerai event because I was like, "What, Panerai? You're a Paneristi?" He says, "Yeah, that's my thing." I said, "Well, I didn't realize that." And I said, "I heard a lot about the Paneristi community." He says, "You should come to one of our events." And he's out in Cleveland, and I'm in the Chicago area. And I was like, I don't own a Panerai. He goes, "That doesn't matter. You need to come. You need to come because you're a watch lover." So at the time, I had talked my wife into it, and I was like, "What do you think?" She's like, "Hang out with a bunch of watch guys for a weekend." I'm like, "Come on, we'll drop the kids off, we'll go hang out, it's Cleveland, we can go to Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, do all kinds of good stuff." So she agreed. And we were gonna do it on the cheap because, they're staying at this nice hotel and everything. And I'm like, well, I got, points at a specific hotel, we'll do that, I'll drive and everything. So I was planning on it. But a tragedy had happened. My wife and I and our two small children, my son, 8 years old, just turned 8, and my daughter, 5. We were driving home from a vacation up in Wisconsin, back down to the Chicago area. And we were driving home, and as we were driving home, a vehicle was driving rather erratically in front of me. And as I saw the vehicle driving erratically, I thought to myself, well, I need to get past the vehicle because he's going to cause an accident. And as I attempted to pass the vehicle, the driver came out with a revolver and began shooting at us. The first round hit my son's door, and the second round hit my wife in the neck. And fragments went through and through, and I found out later that part of the fragments went past my face. And I, being in law enforcement and carrying a gun, when I saw the driver come out with the revolver, my first reaction was to draw my gun. And as I started to draw the gun, the round started hitting. I had to reholster and get out of the way. That's the only thing I could do to help save my family.
Of course.
And as I was getting out of the way, what I didn't realize was there's a third round that went in the hood right towards me. And had it had been maybe 4 or 5 inches higher, it could have hit me as well and could have killed the both of us, or all 4 of us. And so that tragedy happened. It was devastating, obviously, to go through, and continuing to still grieve and go through the grieving process and such. But so going to the watch part of this story, I was calling a lot of my friends in the Redbar community, friends, close friends that have nothing to do with watches, and Steve, who I'd never met yet, never met him face to face. We had just corresponded through emails and made some phone calls, who's this Paneristi in Cleveland that I was supposed to go to this event to. And I called and told him that, this horrible tragedy happened, and I'm obviously not going to be able to make it. He says, I completely understand. Just whatever I can do for you, please let me know. I was like, okay, I had so much going on. He called every single day to check on me. And I had never met him. Every single day, checking on me, you okay? Is everything okay? There was a GoFundMe set up for my family to help pay for my kids in college and things, in the future. Steve had asked me, can I share that story with the Paneristis? I didn't know what that meant, because I didn't have a Panerai. I had heard about Paneristi. I said, okay, that's fine. Days go by. I go to the wake. We have the wake. One of the first people that I see is a person by the name of Ralph. Never met him before in my life. Ralph comes up to me and he says, I'm a Paneristi. I'm a Chicago-based Paneristi. I'm friends with Steven. We know you're not going to be able to make the event, but if there's anything we can do for you, please let us know. And I found out later, Patty, who's one of the founders of Paneristi, was also involved in this, and he actually was parked outside my house, I found out later, wanting to come inside, but he just didn't know what to do. But it was that kindness and that thought to be there for someone that was just amazing to me. We get through the funeral, and Steven's checking on me, and he says, listen, I want you to rethink coming. We'll make it kid-friendly. Bring your kids, get your mind off things. And I thought to myself, I could use a distraction.
Sure.
So I asked my kids. I asked my daughter, do you want to go to a watch party? She's like, can I wear Mama's jewelry? I was like, absolutely. My son, can I wear one of your watches? No problem. Let's do it. So I told Steve, you know what, we're going to do it. He goes, okay, how are you going to get here? I said, well, we'll drive. I got points at the one hotel. We'll just stay over there. He says, no, you're not. He goes, you're flying, and we're taking care of it. I said, what do you mean?
Right.
He goes, that's what Paneristis do. I'm like, I don't have a Panerai. That doesn't matter. You're part of the watch community. You're a Paneristi at heart. We want to do this for you. I was floored. A complete stranger that I've only corresponded with. This party's going to be like 30-some people from all over the states. I was like, okay, we'll chance it. And I still tried to do it as cheaply as possible. So I flew standby with the kids, which was tough. Because I was like, I didn't want to I'm like, I don't know what they're doing. He's like, just, we're paying for it. Don't worry about it. Just get the flights, do this and that. And you're staying in our hotel and everything. Wow. I was like, you're kidding me. So we get there. Stephen works for a Porsche dealer. And he also knows that me and the kids are, well, me especially, are metalheads. And I had just taken my son to see his first Iron Maiden concert weeks before the tragedy. So he pulls up in a brand new Porsche Macan, blasting Iron Maiden, comes out, and he gives me this hug, and I'm like, it was like a long-lost brother.
Wow.
I've never met the guy until that moment. And just the kindness and the love that was shared was amazing. And even, I want to go back at the funeral, the Redbar people that were showing up, guys that I had just started to get to know over the last year, once every couple months, you'd see these guys at a Redbar event, and here they are showing support. They even gave me this beautiful card, bunch of their names on it, bunch of, just whatever we can do for you. Unbelievable. We get to the hotel. It's a beautiful hotel. I'm like, my gosh, I can't believe we're doing this, right? Steve tells me, he says, listen, get settled in, come downstairs, we're going to have the dinner. And just make sure you have a table for me and, me, you, and the kids and stuff. I said, all right. So I go downstairs. All these people, I have no idea who they are. But this is the Paneristis. They're all coming up to me. How are you doing? How are you? Just like, how are you holding up? We heard what happened. We're here for you. Complete strangers. One in particular, Josh. These 2 bags, big bags of toys for my kids for the weekend, for them to do things. One of the other Ristis, my kids were staying with his daughter. Him and his wife were there with their daughter so we can go do the adult time and things like that, and then the kids would have time together. They were going to stay with them as a babysitter. I mean, these are complete strangers.
Incredible.
And I was so he gives the bags to the kids. I find out later he's ex-military contractor, and he got down on his knees and gave each of my kids a challenge coin from the military, from his unit, and said, with all the bravery and all the difficult times you're going through, I want to share this with you. I was floored. I mean, it's unbelievable the kindness that I saw. So we sit down to dinner, and I'm, talking with some of the people and stuff. They're like, what can we get for your kids? And, what kind of food would they want? I was like, it was just unbelievable. Steve comes down, and I forgot, he hands me this iPad, and one of the Paneristis from India wanted to do a little video for me, just saying, welcome, we're sorry, obviously, about what happened, but we're glad you're here to be with us. It was beautiful. I mean, just, again, a person I don't even know. Sets that down. Then he hands me this document, which is right here. This framed document, just like it is here, and it's got the Paneristi logo on it, and this little paragraph, and all the names of all these people, and the countries they're from. Wow. For some that are, I mean unbelievable. Sweden, Germany, Japan, Brazil, South Korea, Canada, Netherlands. Unbelievable. And I'm looking at this, and I read it. May I read it out loud?
Please.
When the Paneristi community was informed of your family's tragedy, and that in your time of suffering, you desired to be with us, it was a call to action. It took less than 2 hours to secure your absolute and lifelong entry into what we know will be a new family for you to be a part of. We welcome you with open arms and a covered wrist.
Wow.
These and so many more are the people you can now call family. I mean, there's got to be 40 or 50 names down here.
Right.
And I was like, what? And then they bring out a box, set it on the table. I open it up, and it's my first Panerai, a PAM 372.
Incredible.
It's absolutely stunning. It's like Steve had said, if you're to get your first Panerai, the 372 has some great history and lineage.
It's the one to have.
That this is the one to have.
It is, yeah.
And it was funny because literally a month before at a Redbar get-together,
Right.
one of my good friends at Redbar Chicago, Eden, he had a 372.
Right.
And I never thought about it before. But in that time when I was looking at it, I was like, you know what, I think that's a pretty cool watch. It's starting to kind of grow on me. I kind of think it's pretty neat. And so yeah, I couldn't believe it. And you know, and the first thing, my son, that's going to be mine someday, which was wonderful. But they told me, we can't bring your wife back. But maybe when you look at this watch, you'll know that there are people out there that care and that are there for you, and that there's good in the world.
That's incredible.